Okay. I've got a stair thing. So Blender's got geometry nodes now. It's really handy. And I was going to make some stairs and... Or actually, I saw Ian Hubert's video about making stairs. And at the time, I was like, man, there's got to be an easy way to do that with geometry nodes. So I tried it, and it didn't really work very well. And so I kind of gave up. But then he made another video, and that one also he's making stairs in it. I was like, man, I've got to solve this problem. So I've solved it. This is... Oh, so then I went and looked for other stair generating things. And, well, so the long and the short of this is you can download this off of my GitHub. It's free. You can play around with it. And tell me what you think in the comments. Okay, so first off, I'm going to go over why I did this. The people who'd made the stair generators before, they did something where it's like, you know, you've got a cube, and then you're going to add an array modifier, and it's like, hey, look, I can make stairs. Whoa, isn't that incredible? And like, yes, that technically that is stairs, I guess, but there's no easy way to like make them wider and narrower. And some people added railings, but then the railings were all like in the same node setup. So I'm trying to make something that's humble. So this setup is humble, and what I mean by that is that it doesn't tell you how to do it. It does whatever you want. So this is just one mesh object. And if you want to move this stuff around, you're like, I don't like the shape of this staircase. I'm going to move this over here. It does it. It's humble. It'll do what you ask it to do. And you're like, oh, I don't like the number of treads on here. I'm going to redo this, right? So you'd say like this. It's all just mesh stuff, right? So minus this and this, and then so now we've got this thing, and we want to change the number of stairs. So we'll just use a loop tool to change the number of stairs. Maybe we want like a ton of tiny stairs on this one. Sure. Done. And then we can always move this around and maybe make it a little bit curved. Maybe make it like that. Whatever you want to do, right? Whatever you want to do. It'll do anything you ask it to do. So that's the beauty of this. You don't have to mess around with all the settings and things. You can just make some stairs, make some stuff. You want to add a balcony or something. You can just add a balcony. Maybe it's a giant balcony. Maybe we want to connect these two things with some stairs. So subdivide this edge and this edge. Oops. Are connected, and I'll make these stairs big. Sure, we're done. So it's dead simple. It works great for what you want to do, which is make some stairs and then get on with your life. And oh, so some details. So I've this has kind of gotten turned around backward here. I'm not sure why this edge turned around backward, but that is an ongoing difficulty. I don't know why it does that. So let's get back to something a little closer to what we had at the beginning. Delete all this. In fact, let's just delete everything, and I'll show you how this all works. So this is this is a plane. This is the basic setup. And we can make some stairs. You take this plane, and it's like, okay, I want a thing down here and a thing up here. And I want to connect them. So you select both edges and fill it. and then you want to make your treads. So Control R, scroll up until you've got enough treads, and then click the button, and you're done. So then you want to be able to get on and off your stairs. So we're going to take these end pieces and we're going to assign them to the vertex group, open edges. And that's it. You got some stairs. And maybe you want a landing up here. Remove that from the open edges group. And maybe you want a landing down here. Ooh. Remove that from the open edges group, and voila. What happened there? Oh, yeah. So, and then you got to make sure that your open edges are off of the plane, or else it'll merge it. So anyway, so there you go. You got some stairs, and then if you want to take these stairs and you want to, you know, make them wider. Let's say we want to scale this. Give it a bit of a swell in the middle. Let's give it a lot of a swell in the middle. There we go. That's nice. And then, say you want to make some more railings in the middle, because people are going to fall over if they're walking in the middle of this. So we can take this. We can... no, I don't want to do that. How do we want to do this? Oh, yeah. So we're going to take this, duplicate it, hide everything else. Maybe do that. And split it. There we go. And then maybe here, split it, hide it, and then all this goes away. And there we go. Now we've got some extra railings in the middle. So that's how you work with it. You just do what it is that you want to do. Make sure that your open edges have these extra vertex groups and are off the plane. And yeah, and Bob's your uncle. There we go. And then you can also just do railings. You don't have to use it for stairs. You can just make a platform with a bunch of railings around it. So that works too. Let's see. It doesn't like, for some reason, it doesn't like a single face. I'm not sure why, but if you separate it out a little bit, then it works great. So you can take this platform, and now you've got a platform with some railings around it. And if you want to add an opening, let's bevel this and pull this out. And then again, you just assign it to open edges. And there you go. It's got an open edge on it. Now this has the edge reversed. So let's go into the details of how this all works in detail, because you can see how to use it. So now let's show how it all actually functions. So we're going to take this. And we're going to separate this. No. Oh, yeah. Okay. No. Undo. I'm not going to separate it. Take just one of these. I'm going to take this. And separate that. Then we're going to hide that. duplicate all this, Control L, link to object data. There we go. All right, so now we've got a separate object. And the reason we need a separate object is because the first thing I'm going to show you is how to get rid of this problem here. So this is pretty simple. We've got a decimate that gets rid of the stair treads so that we don't have a bunch of stair treads in our railings and stuff. If you want just straight railings, it doesn't. You can see the railings here. They don't have the little intermediate points that are from this base mesh. And that's what that decimate does. Then we've got edge isolate. Edge isolate is, oh here, well let's just turn off all these. There. So yeah, that's decimate, just gets rid of the intermediate edges. Then edge isolate takes it from being a filled plane to being just the edges. And let's take a look at that. That's a very simple node setup. It's just, you take the nodes, you delete all the geometry that has greater than one edge face, all the edges, and then you output it. So easy. Then you mask it. That's what gets rid of the edge here that that has that face edge on it. So you can get an opening on it. So you delete the edges there, the mask. Then you do the railing handrail thing, which is the complicated bit, and then you bevel it. Oh, I want to show one more thing. Show off one more thing, which is that these are all procedural, so the railings will all connect up properly. So railing handrail, we'll go into that in a minute. Same thing with this, decimate, edge isolate, the toe plate geometry node setup, and then solidify. So for the railing toe plate, this is the inside out. Click that button and it fixes that problem where the edges get all kicked out. I don't know why it does that, but it does. So anyway, you can turn inside out on and off. And again, these are all separate objects, so you can move them around just like you'd expect to be able to do. And I've got it set up so that things kind of stay connected. Now, maybe we don't want all this fancy stuff in the middle here, so let's just delete all those and get something a little simpler, because this is the basic setup. This is the basic. Let's do a little more density on the railing posts. Post density. There we go. A little better. So this is the basic setup. You've got the walking surface, you've got the toe plate, you've got the verticals, and you've got the railing edge. And these are all run mostly with geometry nodes, but there's a little bit of setup that happens in the modifier stack. And I did that because I didn't want to do too much in geometry nodes. I didn't want to do too much in one geometry node modifier. So here you can see edge isolate. And the reason I didn't want to do that is if you want to change this at some point, you can say, I'm going to take this. Actually, I think you can just apply it now, right? Control apply, make object single user. Yeah, apply. All right, so I'm going to apply that, and maybe we'll apply that. And now we've got this set up, and we can start customizing this stuff. So now the railing spacing is a little bit better, and we can take the railing here, and maybe we want to, I don't know what we want to do with this railing. Add like a little joggle on it or something. We can do that. Maybe like this. And then do that or something. I don't know. Whatever. Whatever you want to do. There. So you can customize it that way, and everything else stays the same. You don't have to muck around in the geometry modifiers or whatever. You can just edit the mesh and apply the stack as you desire. So that's why I did it that way. Yeah. So let's get back to how this all works. So yeah, and all this stuff still works, even though you've applied it and broken the connection. And then this stuff, if I take this, this is disconnected from those now because it's on a different base mesh. So the staircase thing is the, oh, well, let's add some stairs to this so that we can actually see it working. Let's just do it here. It's actually kind of easier to see this way. So there's that. And the staircase thing, stair tread. All right, so let's do the stair tread. So stair tread is really simple. Well, not quite as simple as the edge finder, but it's pretty simple. So what it does is it takes the group input, and here's the geometry. It deletes everything that has a normal. This is all just calculating the normal. I don't know if there's an easier way to do this, but there you go. So it takes everything that does not have a normal selection. So here's the selection. It's and less than these two things of the absolute value of separate X and Y normal. So it takes the normal of the face, and if the normal is greater than, well, if it's less than it, then it deletes it and then separates it out. So here we can see stair treadify acceptable scope. So that's the only thing that we've got on here. And the reason I did that is because in case you wanted to make, let's make a staircase and a ramp. So here's the staircase. We're gonna make our staircase. It's pretty steep. And then we're gonna have a ramp coming off over here. And that's not too steep. Well, we'll make it a little bit steeper and say we wanted to make this ramp. We wanted to make it a ramp instead of having it break it off. So you just change the acceptable slope, ramp it up a little bit, and there you go. And now it's a ramp again. So that's the reason I wanted to add that feature. So that's the only thing you can mess with in the modifier stack, acceptable slope. It just tells it whether or not to break each face out into a separate tread or to keep them all together as a slope. So here I can see, I can do that, and it doesn't break them apart because the slope is under the acceptable slope. And if I pull this down, then it breaks them apart. And if I pull this up high enough, then it'll make this a ramp as well. But you have to bring it pretty high. What is that? 7, yeah, 0.7. So let's bring this back up to the version. Okay, good. So that's the stair tread. That's all it does. And then I've got a solidify on here. So you could do some fancy stuff with geometry scatter on the stair treads and make them out of stone, or put a support structure underneath it, but I wanted to keep this simple so that whatever setup you want to do is what you can do, and then it doesn't have to get too complicated. So that's all it does. It just breaks them apart, separates the treads, and so that's what it looks like with the modifier. And then you can turn on the solidify. And it solidifies on, and that just gives it a little bit of thickness, so it looks like a stair. So that's that part, and same thing with this. These are exactly the same modifier. So if we take the acceptable slope and pull it up, it turns into a ramp. All right, so then next thing probably is the edge railing. So this is the edge railing. Now I've messed up that. Here, let's go over here. So it decimates it, edge isolate, mask, and then the railing modifier. So we're going to go back over to this one. Yeah. That's edge isolate. Railing. There we go. All right. Again, not super complicated. I tried to keep these as simple as I could so that each geometry nodes thing is pretty straightforward. So what happens here is we've got our base geometry. Can we just, yeah, there we go. Got our base geometry. I'll get a little closer here. There. And then we do a few things with it. We take the base geometry and we put it through a switch. This is for the ends, the end pieces. So if you've got a end offset greater than some very small value, then that's just Boolean. Then you do the switch value. And so if I take this end offset, I can move this up and down. You can see these little points here are moving up and down. And so if I set this to 0, it switches out, and now we're not using that end offset at all. We're just using the base geometry. So that's what that does. Not super complicated. Then we extrude it. Oh, so if we do extrude it, then we're extruding it, and we're extruding it based on the input value. So that's this, wherever that is. Add object. Yeah, object info. So this is the object. This is the toe plate 01. That's this object here. And the reason I do that is because if I move this up and down, I want the base of this to, the little end of this thing to stick to the edge of the toe plate. So we can make this real small, real high. And I'm not doing anything with geometry nodes at this point. I'm just moving this around. So see, I can move this, make it sloped, make it slanted, and the whole thing is slanted. And it does that because it's got this object info relative location. So if you do original, then it doesn't work. You have to do relative location, and then we add it to the Z value that we're doing from the end offset. And that end offset also goes into this comparison just so we can tell if it's a value or not. So the end offset changes how high up and down that is. Let's see that. How high that end offset is. So that's what that does. So now we've got our mesh, and we've got forgetting how to set up the viewer. There we go. All right, so now we've got, this is still a mesh. It's not a curve. So the next thing we do is convert it to a curve. Looks exactly the same because it is exactly the same, except now it's a curve, so we can fillet the curve. So that's the next step. We use the fillet radius input here. And it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that gets more rounded or less rounded. And that's all that is doing. I've got the count set to 3 with poly just because the Bezier doesn't do anything, because these are not Bezier curves. They're vertex curves. I'm not sure why it does that, but anyway, this works. It works fine. 3 is plenty. If you want to change it, you can always change this, but this changes it for everything. But I didn't want to complicate the railing thing with that detail, so it's set at 3. Then we take a curve circle and we do curve to mesh, with the curve circle as a profile. And there you go. You've got your railing. And then the only other thing we do is merge it by distance, just in case there's any of these that are really small. So like if you've got, yeah, that makes sense, right? If you've got a bunch of, well, here, let's edit this. So otherwise you'd have like 9 or what, 3 times 6, 36 vertices here, but instead it just merges them all and you've only got 6. And if we move this point, you can see that expands out as it fillets it. But if it's 0, then it doesn't do anything, or it deletes them. So that's merge by distance. And then the other thing that does is it fills in the end caps. So if these fill end caps is turned on, but if you don't have merge by distance, then those are separate, and then you can't do other stuff like the bevel that I do later. And then I set it to shade smooth because I want these to be smooth. And that's it. Turn off the viewer. There. So that's that. And then the last thing is we bevel the ends. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. Not sure why it's not doing anything. Bevel, edges, offset. We have clamp turned on. Oh, that's weird. Does the ordering get messed up here? It's like the ordering got... Oh, I know what happened. Railing handrail. This should... I don't know, limit radius is turned on. Well. Is it the merge by distance that's messing it up? No. I put this here too. Doesn't do anything. All right, well, I don't know why it's doing that, but if you just take those points and make them a little bigger, then it doesn't do that anymore. And now our bevel's working. All right, so there's the bevel on the end. And I just wanted that bevel to be there so that our end caps are nice and beveled. So that is the railing, the top railing. And again, you can take these and you can, well, so this is a little bit weird, but this is exactly the same thing. These top railings. Oh, I didn't go over all the details. So there's the end offset. I went over that. There's the railing radius, which changes how big this is. And then there's the fillet radius, which I went over, which changes the size of the... You can see it when I get it really big, but changes the size of that fillet. So these are just top railing objects that I duplicated. So Alt-D. And yeah, this is exactly the same thing. And then you can have as many of these as you want. So for these intermediate ones, I set the end offset to 0 so that they didn't have that little tail hanging down. But you could, I don't know, you could do the thing where like this maybe goes down to here. Or, oh yeah, okay. So then this one's down here. We're going to take these. We're going to make the radius the same. And then we're going to take this one and make this end offset positive. And have them meet up. And there you go. Now you got a fancy railing, or whatever you want, right? So it's very flexible. You can do whatever you want with it, and it makes it easy to modify. Well, maybe we should move these up a little bit. There we go. Cool. So yeah, so that's the railing part. So that's we've went over the floor, just makes the stair pieces. The railing just makes the railings parts, and now let's go over the verticals. So this is annoying me. All right, I'm gonna delete this thing. It was a mistake. We're gonna go back to this one. This one's much prettier. The verticals. So we've got several vertical objects here. We've got this one, and this one. The main differences between these are the post density. So here we've got a post density of about 1. This one, post density is a little over 5, like 5.5. And the reason that matters, if we crank this down, we can see the post density goes down, and we crank it up. Actually, I like that better with 2 little ones in between each. That looks nice. But you can see it better here. So here's the post density. Pull it down, pull it up. So let's take a look at that. Posts have the same kind of edge isolate thing and the mask. So we're back to having, let's just show what's coming in here. That. So those are our edges that we've got to work with. First thing we do is we split the edges again so that this doesn't look any different, but what it does is instead of having 4 contiguous curves, it makes each one of these segments its own curve. And that's important because then we go over here and we multiply the spline length by our post density and add a maximum of 1 because we always want to subdivide at least once. And then we subdivide curves. And if we didn't split these edges again, well, here, I'll just show you. Then we would subdivide the curve way too much on the small ones and way too little on the big ones because this whole thing ends up as one long curve. And so then the length of this curve, the spline length, is the total length of the curve instead of the length of each segment. So that's why we do that. So we've got each segment. We're going to subdivide it. It's kind of hard to see. You can't really see these, but then we take the endpoints and we delete the endpoints of those. So here's what that looks like. You can see there's little segments here, and each of the endpoints are deleted. And that makes it so that there isn't a post at the end and at the corners, which is important if you want to fillet your railing like we have here. So, but downside is you don't get a post here. Maybe you want that post. And if you do, then you can add it in manually by modifying the base mesh. Anyway, so we've got our delete geometry, so that deletes the endpoints. Let's get back into here. Then we do curve to mesh again, and we delete only the edges and faces, so we're just left with points. So that gives us this. And that is the basis for our rail posts. So we just take those rail posts, we extrude them by the top railing object relative location. And that gives us this. And this one, the top railing object, there's a way to jump to target. There we go. Anyway, that is the object. So if we move this, you can see that it's moving the height of those interstitial railings. And I did it that way because I don't want to have to be messing around with numbers. I want to just be able to move stuff around in the viewport to see how it looks and have everything all line up nicely. So if you were going to do this simple version, you didn't have all these intermediate ones, then you just have your railing object. You'd set this top railing to whatever it is that your top railing is. And then when you move your top railing around, it works nicely. All right, so we're almost there. We've got extrude mesh there. We've got extrude mesh there. Then we turn it back into a curve. We subdivide the curve by 2, and that gives us multiple segments in here. So you can see that each of these is actually 3 little segments. And the reason we do that is because then we set position. So there's our subdivide curve, and then here is our set position. So our set position is going to do an offset with a random value based on the vector and its opposite, which is scaled to -1, of the damage size. You may not have noticed the damage size because it's subtle. But how do I turn off the preview? There. But if we increase the damage fraction and increase the damage size, then you'll see it. So let's do that, and then we'll go back in here and look at this. So this is taking the random value. It's taking the damage fraction as the probability of that object being selected, or that point being selected for deformation. But then it also does not the endpoint. So it selects the endpoints here and then does a not on it. So it has to be both randomly selected and not an endpoint, because you don't want the endpoints moving around and kicking off all over the place. If you want these to actually be broken, you could always just set the end size to 0 here, and now some of these ends are going to be broken off. Maybe that's what you want. That's not what I wanted, but it's easy to change right here with the end size. Or you could do the start size, and now some of the bottoms are broken off. Or you could do both, and then some of the ends are broken off and some of the bottoms are broken off, and just have to hope that you don't get one that has both, like this one right here that's floating in space. Or maybe you don't care about that either. So anyway, that's what the damage fraction does, and that's why I've got all this stuff in here with the set position. Finally, does what we did before. Curve circle, this one's just got a resolution of 4. The big ones have a resolution of 6. You can change that here if you want. You can add it to the railing post geometry node thing if you want. But I don't like having to mess with it, and my posts never need more than 4 sides anyway. So I just leave it like that. And then it goes curve to mesh, and that gets us back to where we started, which is where we finished, which is having this whole thing work. All right, so let's crank this down. We're going to set this back to 1. We're going to crank this back down. I set this to like 0.1, works pretty well. And then damage size down to maybe like that. And it just gives it a little bit of variation so that it looks like it was actually built, as opposed to it looking like it's this perfect CG model. So you can see there's just a little bit of wonky railing damage here. And again, that's all adjustable in the modifier. So we're almost there. The only thing left is this, which looks like it has reversed. So let's do that inside out. There we go. So this is the toe plate. And again, decimate, edge isolate, toe plate, and finally solidify. So very similar to the stair tread. And you can even set the thickness to the same thing if you want it to. I've got this slightly thinner. But this is a nice shaped toe plate, but it doesn't have to be nice shaped. Maybe you don't want that little joggle on there. So you set the joggle to 0, and then, oh no, what has happened? All right, well, maybe we get the fix it thing. Let's see, joggle 0. Is this merge by distance not working? Yeah, just needs to be set a little bit higher. All right, fine. Set your merge by distance a little bit higher. So you maybe don't want to joggle. That's fine. Maybe you don't want the lower flange. That's fine. Maybe you don't want the upper flange. Can we do that? Nope. You need an upper flange. Oh dear. It needs to be negative. All right. So these values need to be negative. Maybe I should set that up. Let's fix that here. Upper max is 0. Lower flange max is 0. There we go. So now if we set our upper height to 0, it still messes up, but it doesn't kill us. Lower height, yeah. If you set lower height to 0, then you don't have a lower flange. But you're always going to have an upper flange, unless you set the flange to 0. And now there's no flange. So again, I tried to make it as simple as I could, try to incorporate kind of the basic functionality of this stuff without needing to go into too many details with the geometry nodes modifier. So let's look at those. We're going to add our joggle back in, upper height, back to there-ish, lower height, maybe further down, and flange. Oh yeah, if you set the flange to positive, then it makes a flange on the inside. But we're going to set it to negative, so it's on the outside. There. And again, you could take this flange and split it out so that instead of using the flange for both the upper and the lower, it just does it for one, but I like it this way. It also gives you on the edge here. All right, so how does this work? We've got, again, our edges. So that's what we start with. And this one doesn't have, you'll notice that the other ones have the mask before here. So we've got the mask and then we've got our geometry nodes. This one has no mask in it because I need that edge to work on the loop. So this makes a whole loop, which then means when you do mesh to curve, it calculates the order of this whole thing so you don't have an inconsistent loop on the outside. And that is important because otherwise this offset will, this offset inside versus outside will sometimes be inconsistent. So maybe this one would be inside out. But if you calculate mesh to curve first, then you don't have to worry about it. And if you do get it backward, we've got this reverse curve in here with a switch to turn it inside out. So you can just do that if you want it to be inside out for some reason. You could also just reverse all these values, but you know, the joggle and the flange values, that would do the same thing. But I like having a nice little toggle here to flip everything around in case the normals get reversed for whatever reason. So then it's got delete geometry. So now it's going to do the mask part. So we do curve to mesh. We switch it back. So this first mesh to curve, curve to mesh is just to get the order of the vertices straightened out. Then we do delete geometry that has the named attribute value of open edges in this case, but it could be whatever. And this is a vertex group. So here, vertex group open edges. So that's why that's set to that, and that's so that it masks it off. So this is the mask. You can see it's called mask even. So we've got that, we mask it off, we delete all the geometry that's on the ends that we don't care about, and that gets us here. So before it looked like this, afterward it looks like this. That long neck is gone. Then we extrude the mesh. That's just extruding it down by the offset amount. And then we just basically, oh no, and then we split the edges. All right, so this is with a assigned angle greater than 1. And again, we could also fix that, but that is so that the inside edges that are too sharp don't get, let's see. Let's demo that. There it goes. So you can see here, we're looking at this part right here. So here it's connected, but if you get too far in, it disconnects it. And that's because when you get those inside corners, the geometry gets really wonky after a certain point, and so I just had it split that out because it looks nicer when you've got like a staircase coming up into a corner like that. It's not perfect, but it looks nicer. So that's why that's there. So that's the split edges. Then we just do a bunch more extrudes. So this is really basic stuff where it just extrudes it for the, what is this? The joggle value, and then for the lower flange, and then for the, or no, for the lower height, and then for the flange that goes around the edge, and then finally it merges everything by distance, so that if any of these are set to 0, you don't get doubled vertices and mess up your solidify modifier. So that's what that all is doing. So you can see here we could set the joggle really high and maybe knock the upper height down a bit more. And now we've got this very, very pronounced kind of shape. Just realized that my shape is a little bit inappropriate, but that's all right. If you don't draw attention to it, no one will notice. So that's what all those values do, and that's it. That's the whole script. So finally, I want to just go over a few things. We already demoed a little bit about how you can mess around with the railings to make them look different. We can take these and, of course, make these much larger. Post damage size. Oh, did I forgot to expose the ability to change the size. Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm doing the stream. The updated version will be uploaded as soon as I finish here. Let's see. we're going to take this and we're going to bring it over here, and we're going to set the curve circle radius as, there we go. So now we can change the radius. Yeah, there we go. All right, well, that's important to be able to change the radius of our posts. So you could do really large radius posts. Maybe this one should be larger too. You can make multiple post densities like I've got here with the one in between. Maybe we want to delete that one and just have this. I mean, that looks nice too. They're all so cool. Oh, well, those are a little bit high. Let's see, radius. Can we do this? No. Fillet radius, railing radius. I wonder if we call these things the same thing, then will the alt modifier work on it? So I'm just trying to modify both. Hold down alt and then change this. No, it doesn't work because it's a different thing. Oh well. It was a nice try. We can crank this down a little bit. Crank this down a little bit. But maybe not so far down as the other ones. There we go. So anyway, now we've got a floating top railing here. But we could take this. Oh, so one other thing and another thing. Another thing you can do with this is if you don't want all of these posts along the stairs, you can actually take this. We'll do it with this one. So we're going to Alt-D, duplicate it, move this up to right about here, make the top railing the target. Yeah, let's delete these. There we go. And then before we do this whole thing, we're going to add a weld. But after the mask. So now if we crank this weld up, we should probably do connected only. Then soon, yep, there we go. We start welding out some of the posts. So if you don't want your stairs to each have their own post, just use a weld modifier before the railing post one, and then you can crank that up however high you want. But maybe not that high. There we go. That's pretty good. So yeah, that's another thing you can do, just so that you don't have to have quite so many posts for your railings. And then you could do something where instead of adding that railing post, you instanced some sort of post object on here, so you could have like your carved posts on it. We could do a curve instead of setting the curve radius by default. We could have a curve radius that's set based on some other curve, and then we could have all the railings have this nice fluted shape to them. There's lots of stuff you could do, but this is the basics, and that's what I was trying for. So that is the railing thing and the stair thing, and then again, you can take this and if you wanted to make some sort of crazy, platform or whatever, maybe it's like this. This is over here. This is over here. It just works. So that is lovely. And now we've got a little annex over here, and you don't have to think about your railings and stuff. You can just put it in and it works, and it all just works. So I am very happy with how this turned out, this setup. And the other thing, of course, is that these are all just objects. So you can move them all around. You can move this all around. You can scale this and animate it and all that kind of thing that you'd expect in case you wanted to, I don't know, show like a variety of railing heights or whatever. The only thing it doesn't do is it does not dynamically generate the stairs. And the reason it doesn't is because I wanted that to be under the user's control. I wanted the user to be able to say, this is where I want my stairs to be, and no other place. Actually, let's take these, and can we, no, let's see, check or deselect. Yeah. Only works on one section. All right, there we go. Delete those. Or no, Control X to. And same thing here. Control X. There. So now our inner railings aren't quite so dense as the outer ones. Because you're not going to fall off of the inner railing, right? Right? In fact, we could make this much less dense. Let's do that. Do that. There we go. So now they're using the other set of railing criteria. Yeah. All right. So this has been very fun developing this. I am looking forward to using it on all kinds of projects where I need railings and stairs and stuff, because it lets you do the thing you wanted without having to mess around with all the stuff that you don't care about. Oh, and then I guess one last thing is, if you don't want a platform, you just want some railings, you can do that too. You just extrude it around, and it works like you'd expect. Because it doesn't make stairs unless there are faces. So that works too. If you just want to put a railing along the edge of a cliff or something, you just use the edges. So it's super great. It's super great. Love it. What happens if you just have a vertex all by itself? Nothing. That's what happens. What happens if you do that? Yeah, see, so that works too. Oh yeah, so another thing you could do is, if you wanted this kind of edge thing, I don't have a way, because these are going to meet up. Well, so here we go. So we're going to take this, and we can... why? No. We can... no, we want to... all right, well, we can separate each of these out. Oh, we could check or deselect it. There we go. And now why? There we go. So now all of these railings have their own little edge to them, like this. And I guess the last thing you could do would be to take all of these and do scale from individual origins, and then just scale them down a tiny bit. There we go. There we go. And now we've got that kind of industrial railing look, without having to go through and edit each one individually. And maybe you don't want the bottom on this section. Maybe you just want the railing, and so you can just delete it, and now you've just got the railing. So very flexible, very easy to use. I'm quite happy with that. I'd like to add at some point the ability to do this, where you can take the railing segments and kind of split them out, but doesn't currently exist. But like I just showed, it's not that hard to do. So thanks guys for watching. The one person who watched about an hour ago, thanks. And again, like I said, you can download this on my GitHub. It's all available for free. And if you have any questions, leave a comment in the video. Have a good day.